This is special. Many of you may have seen our guest in TV and newspaper ads. Well, in a few moments, you're going to meet her for the first time. She was the model who told millions of American women, "You've come a long way, baby," and she has. From successful model to someone who studied to be and became a psychotherapist. She went on to be a regular guest on ABC's Good Morning America. In her 70s, she lost her husband. She sought and found a new beginning from dating again with some hilarious experiences to writing a book. Come on, let's meet Barbara Levy as we go around town with me, Howard Kaye. Hello, I'm Howard Kaye. And this is an exciting show. Why? Well, I guess it takes us back to our past. And while I certainly don't mean to date our guest, Miss Barbara Levy, welcome.
It's all right, you can date me.
I'm going to date you, but maybe backwards to 1968. Why? Because you were a face that so many saw throughout not only America, but maybe the world, but you're going to get into that in just a moment. Let's begin with how you started, how you got picked to be the face and figure of the Virginia Slims cigarette ads.
I bumped into a friend, a boyfriend of mine from when I was about 16 years old, and he said to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm modeling." I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I make commercials in California." And then I said, "Oh, that's fascinating." And he said, "What are you doing today?" I said, "Nothing much." He said, "Why don't you go up and there's a terrific commercial that they're looking to cast, and it's going to be a big thing." And I froze a little bit because
at that time you didn't know it was for cigarettes.
I had no idea what it was for. But it was just not in my league at that time. I was busy modeling on 7th Avenue and doing all the fashion shows, and it was all about fashion and me. I wasn't into photography and commercials. So he said, "I think you'd be perfect." So he sent me up to the ad agency. They brought in a whole bunch of guys, and they said, "Go take a walk and turn around and turn and look over your shoulder." So I did that, and they said, "She's it." And that was it.
And that was it. Now, the year was 1968, the year Virginia Slims introduced, and the slogan, which was, "You've come a long way, baby." That really became part of the vocabulary, and has stayed that way ever since. Yeah. What was it about that line that just took America by storm?
Well, first of all, it was the time of the beginning of women's liberation, and we were standing up, and we weren't men's armpits anymore, and they were coming out with a cigarette that it wasn't macho, it wasn't Marlboro Man. It was made for a beautiful feminine woman, and it was shaped differently, and it was going to be a big push for women's lib. And I was lucky enough to get in on it.
But now when you look back on that, how does it make you feel? You're promoting something that obviously, I assume you don't smoke, and you know what it does for you, but what is it like thinking back in those days?
Well, in those days, no one had a clue. So, I've often asked myself, if they offered it to me today, would I do it? And, I smoked. I didn't smoke a carton of cigarettes, but I had to light a carton of cigarettes. I made 3 commercials that day for these people. And I just lit it, and I didn't really puff. I had to take one puff and then blow a stream of smoke. I don't know that I would have done it. You got to be crazy. But then I had such a great time, and I had so much fun with this whole scene, and it did a lot in my life.
All right, Barbara, let's take a look at some of your television commercials and your print ads.
For years, men told you the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. And for years, you listened. Until one day you discovered something. You couldn't go anywhere with your hand on the cradle. And you said, "Dear, you rock the cradle. I'm going to win the vote." And you did. And soon you won a lot more.
You've come a long way, baby.
This is the made just for women. New Virginia Slims. Tailored for the feminine hand. Slimmer than the fat cigarettes men smoke, with flavor you'll like. full, rich Virginia flavor. New Virginia Slims in the striped first pack.
You've come a long way, baby, to get where you got to today. You've got your own cigarette now, baby. You've come a long, long way.
In 1910, Lucille Watkins had to sneak out to the chicken coop to smoke a cigarette. When her husband discovered her, feathers flew. In 1912, Charlotte Hawkins had the audacity to smoke in the parlor. When her husband came home early, she paid the price. Then women won their rights.
You've come a long way, baby.
This is the Slim cigarette made just for women. New Virginia Slims, tailored for the feminine hand. Slimmer than the fat cigarettes men smoke, with flavor you'll like. Full, rich Virginia flavor. New Virginia Slims in the striped first pack.
You've come a long way, baby, to get where you got to today. You've got your own cigarette now, baby. You've come a long, long way.
You know, I was 37 years old when I did this.
37.
Yes, I mean, that's
Oh, that's
unheard of.
unusual.
Yeah, very unusual. You don't have that today. All
Wait
the
a minute,
kids.
37.
Yeah, I'm going to be 78.
Are you really?
Yes.
What were you trying to get across to the public back then?
Well, first of all, it was a time of change, as I said, women's lib, and women were standing up for themselves. But interestingly enough, in my personal life, I had two things going on. I was married to a tough guy, a great guy, but a very tough guy. And it was the 50s, and if you were a housewife, which I was, you answered to your husband and you asked him. I had to ask permission to go to work. That was really quite unusual.
So that was
in
the
these days.
stereotypical
50s housewife.
50s housewife. But you were the one that just didn't model the famed miniskirt. You actually introduced it to the world.
Yes. It was the biggest show of the year. They had all the press from around the world. They had every designer from around the world. They had every fancy lady that could afford these clothes, every manufacturer, jammed into the Hilton Grand Ballroom of the Hilton Hotel in New York. Down the middle of the room was this huge runway that we all had to walk up and go down and come back and do our stuff. I was hired for one dress. All the other, well, they were very different than me. I was a different look. They were, in my day of modeling, the women were all about 5'10". I was 5'7". They were mostly brunettes and big girls, you know, big shoulders and, I don't know, just gorgeous big women. And I was very little for me.
Well, you were petite
I was
compared
big,
to them.
yeah, exactly. And I was booked for just one show, the finale. Christian Dior booked me to wear this one dress that was this beaded little mini dress that came right below my crotch, had silver stockings, silver pumps, and you remember Yves Saint Laurent, I don't know if you remember, but your mother will remember, Yves Saint Laurent brought in the new look in the 50s that was long down to the ankles.
Long, great.
So this was going to be a change in the whole look of the fashion industry.
Now,
and
were
the
you
whole
okay
new-
with this when they showed you what you were going to be wearing, or was it a shock to you?
I was delighted. I was just so happy to be there because I was really out of my league. These were all these famous everybody's, and I was picked to do the most important dress in the show.
So you understand that you're now about to introduce to the world something that has never been worn by women.
Yes.
And this was a huge leap because when we talk about women's lib and even going back to the phrase, you've come a long way, baby, this was the start of something huge.
Yeah,
So
this
tell
was
me
it.
the story. You're there on the runway. What happens?
Well, I wasn't on the runway yet. I was standing, waiting to go on as the finale. And I never was more petrified in my life. I was shaking, and I mean, I was just thinking, what if I fall down? What if I fall off? What if I do trip? I'd never done a big show like this. This was the biggest show of the year. And all the girls were you know, doing 9 different outfits, walking back and forth and being so glamorous. I was frozen stiff because, you know, I had no idea if I was going to make it or what it was going to be like. I've never done a show like that
Right.
before. All right, so Norman Norell, who was the guy, he was God, and his girls came right before me. And I see Denise, his favorite model, who was this exquisite, tall, statuesque, big-boned, gorgeous woman coming down in this elegant black satin gown. And she was breathtaking. And she walked down, and the audience was just applauding because it was Norman Norell, who was God, and Denise, who was exquisite. And I'm standing there waiting to go on, shaking. And I was, you know, I couldn't even have water because I was afraid I'd dribble it down the front of my dress. And so I see her coming down, and now she's walking down the stairs, and I'm standing over here, waiting to go up the same stairs that she had just come down. And as she passes me, she doesn't look at me. She goes like this.
She elbowed you.
She elbowed me, but right in my gut. And I wasn't scared enough. That's what I needed in my life. So I stood there, and I
She knew
couldn't
she had
breathe.
competition.
So she just kept walking, and I couldn't breathe. I said, now I have to get up and do this thing. And I took a couple of deep breaths, and I said, all of a sudden it dawned on me, if she was that crazy to do that, I must look so spectacular in this dress that it gave me a sense of myself and a confidence to walk up and just be fabulous. I twirled around, and I was, I don't know, sexy. I looked at the audience, and I had the best time.
And you knew it too. You felt it.
I felt it. I felt it. She gave me the push that she didn't want to give me. She gave me the wrong push.
Right.
It was so much fun. I'll never forget